What is going on, you guys? My name is Jordan, also known as the Fit Geek. Today we're talking about Portal Knights, and especially the individual classes that you can play as in this game. Now, we know that there are three classes that you can choose to play in Portal Knights: the Mage, the Warrior, and the Ranger. I want to give you guys a quick little crash course or guide on each individual class. So if you're looking to buy the game, or if you're looking to create a new character if you already have the game, I hope this guide will be of some help to you. If it was of help to you, please make sure you drop a like below and subscribe to my channel for more gaming content. Alright, let's get right into it. So let's start off with the Mage. The playstyle for the Mage is going to be longer range. Now, when we talk about a Mage class or a Wizard class in any RPG, we know that the class is going to be extremely fragile. What does that mean? That means that anytime you get hit, it's going to be doing a lot of damage and it's really easy for you to die. I was playing this game just yesterday, and despite having a very well balanced and skilled Mage character, I absolutely got annihilated by some normal mobs just because I messed up a few dodges. So if you're going to choose the Mage class, just keep in mind that it's going to be really easy for you to die. So there's the playstyle for the Mage. We've got a focus on long distance with a little bit of close range combat with the Scythe weapon. We'll talk about that a little later. Okay, so some of the strengths for the Mage that I wanted to talk about were the fact that the skills that you can get as a Mage are going to be a lot more lethal than any other skills you would get with any other class. The reason this is because the Mage is specially designed to be dealing big bursts and big amounts of damage from those skills that you get from the altar. So if you look at my number 2, you'll see that it's a fireball. That is a skill. It's not a weapon, it's a skill. And if I use that skill on an enemy, it's going to be doing 4 or 5 times more damage than what my normal weapon would be doing. So that is a huge strength for the Mage, is the fact that you can get all of these different spells and skills that you can use that are going to be doing a ton of damage. Some of the weaknesses for the Mage, like I discussed, it's an extremely fragile class. It's really easy to die. So you want to be keeping a longer range in between you and the enemies you're fighting when you're playing a Mage. And if you do want to use a Scythe and get up close and personal, you need to be really good at dodging. Some of the armor that the Mage wears. So in this game, you can pretty much wear whatever armor it is you want. So if you wanted to play a Mage character and wear warrior armor, you totally could. And I know a lot of people who play the game that have done that. They make like a battle mage or whatever it is. If you want to be playing a pure Mage style character, you're going to be wearing the Mage clothing, the Mage armor, because the armor is going to give you passive abilities that are going to be benefiting your playstyle more than warrior armor would, for example. So when we're talking about Mage armor, if you have like the high wizard clothing, it's going to be giving you huge boosts to your mana regeneration, your spell damage, in comparison to if you were wearing warrior armor, which, yes, you'd get a defense boost, but it wouldn't touch your mana, it wouldn't touch your spell power. The weapons that the Mage can wield are the wand, the staff, and the scythe. When you're using the wand as a Mage, you're going to be wanting to keep a good distance between you and your enemies. The reason being is because you have a long-ranged weapon. It makes sense for you to stay further back so your enemies can't hit you, but you can be hitting them. Onto the staff. The staff is the more balanced of the 3 Mage weapons. I'm not going to discuss it too much. It's really basic. If you want to just be playing a more balanced playstyle, then go with the staff. Now, the scythe is the complete opposite side of the spectrum in comparison to the wand. So the scythe is going to be your close damage dealing weapon, and it's going to be dealing a lot of damage. My favorite Mage weapon is the scythe because I like to think that my dodging skills are relatively good, and aside from that, wielding a scythe as a Mage is just absolutely awesome looking. So the scythe is going to be your close up weapon that's going to be doing a lot of damage, but also keep in mind that you're risking it a lot because, like I talked about, the Mage is a more fragile character, so when you're getting close to enemies, you're going to be more at risk to taking higher amounts of damage. Now onto the attributes that you want to focus on when playing a Mage. If you didn't already get this from the game kind of gives you a nice little walkthrough of what 2 attributes to focus on if you want to be purely playing that class's playstyle. So with the Mage, that is intellect and wisdom, I think is what it's called. And essentially one of the two boosts your total amount of mana, and the other one boosts your spell damage. I have always loved magic users, and the Mage is just my go-to for this game. It was my go-to for this game before I even started playing. As soon as I saw there was a Mage class, that's the one I wanted to play, and I am not disappointed at all with the class in and of itself. It's a very powerful class, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to sit back and absolutely annihilate enemies. Alright you guys, now we're going to be talking about the Warrior class in Portal Knights. Now, the playstyle for the Warrior is going to be completely up close and personal damage, high amounts of damage, up close, right in your enemy's face, smashing their face in with a hammer. The Warrior's playstyle is similar to any other Warrior class that you may or may not have seen in any other RPG. I always have loved Warrior classes. I really have never hated any specific class, but the Warrior in Portal Knights is really fun to play. It's a little bit difficult, and a lot of people are going to tell you that the Warrior is the worst class just because you don't have any ranged options, and the targeting in this game is a little bit below par in comparison to some other games. So having only melee damage dealing weapons is going to limit your play a little bit. It's going to limit how dangerous your character actually is. Okay, on to the Warrior's strengths. Now, when we're talking about the Warrior, the first thing I want to point out is the fact that you are able to wield really high damage dealing weapons and armor. Not damage dealing armor, but high armor count clothing. Okay, so when we are playing as the Warrior, it's going to be really easy to get right up close to an enemy and deal a ton of damage in a really short amount of time because you're going to be having those two-handed swords and the huge axes and hammers, and you don't really need to be afraid to get up close to your enemies because you have such high armor. You're not too worried. You're not going to be taking a lot of damage when they hit you. That is if you're actually playing a true Warrior. Like I said, the customization in this game is endless, so if you wanted to be playing a Warrior and be wearing Mage clothing or Ranger clothing, you could. But for a pure Warrior playstyle and class build, you are going to be having very high armor, very high defenses, so it's going to be super easy for you to get right up in the face of enemies and go right into the heat of the battle. The biggest weakness that I found when playing the Warrior is the fact that you only have melee weapons. You have really no ranged damage dealing options, which can be a real pain in the butt when you're fighting a flying enemy or an enemy that has a faster movement speed than you. Just in the very first zone, there are those little parrots that are flying around, and as I was playing this Warrior, just to get some background footage for you guys, it was really hard for me to actually get a hit on one of the parrots. I would stand right next to it, and because it was flying and up higher, I couldn't hit it, even though I was right next to it with my sword. So that's the biggest weakness for the Warrior, I think, is just the fact that you lack any and all ranged damage options. That's a huge liability, and that is a really big and exploitable weakness. So when you're playing the Warrior, just be careful of that. Don't let your enemies get too far away from you. Armor for the Warrior. As we talked about, the Warrior wears high armor count armor, heavy armor, metal armor, whatever you want to call it. The Warrior is going to be wearing those big plate pieces of armor that are going to have really high armor counts, really high defenses, and you can get passive boosts on the armor as well, like increased stamina, increased toughness, increased melee damage. So you can really buff up and power up your Warrior to how you want to play. So if you wanted to have a really defensive Warrior, you can totally do that. If you want to have a really offensive focused Warrior, then you could totally do that. The weapons for the Warrior, you have 3 main weapons that you can play or use as the Warrior. So the first is going to be your sword, the second is an axe, and the third is a hammer. I haven't played the Warrior too much, so I can't tell you a lot about these weapons, but I know that the sword is going to be your fastest attacking weapon. We know that all 3 of them are close range, but they are going to have different speeds, different attack speeds, different damage counts, different passive abilities that are available for those weapons. So the biggest thing is know that the sword is going to be your fastest weapon, and I think the hammer is going to be your slowest. It's either the hammer or the axe. I think it's the hammer, but that's going to be your slowest attack speed weapon. So just be careful of that. If you want to be doing big damage with 1 or 2 hits, then the hammer's for you, but just know that it's going to take a long time for you to swing that hammer around. Attributes for the warrior, the attributes that you want to focus on when playing the warrior are strength and I think toughness is what it's called. And essentially that is just going to be physical damage resistance and physical damage dealing. So my thoughts on the warrior class is that it's a really cool class. There's a lot of customization potential. There's a lot of potential for the class itself when it comes to the warrior as a class, but I feel like right now it's the weakest class in the game. The reason being is because the way the combat works in this game, the way the enemies are designed, it just makes more sense to be using ranged weapons. Now, I know I said earlier that the scythe is my go-to weapon with my mage, who is my main character, but keep in mind I still have a wand at the ready to deal ranged damage when I need to. So I feel like the warrior is the weakest class in the game. Don't let that keep you from playing it though, because it's a really fun class despite the obvious weaknesses, despite the long range damage. It's still a really fun class, and I enjoy playing my warrior, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy playing yours. Alright, let's talk about the ranger now. So the first thing that comes to mind when we're talking about the ranger is the playstyle. So the ranger is completely focused on long range damage. Now, a lot of people are going to be telling you that the ranger is the most powerful class, the most useful class in this game, because of the fact that you have so many different options for long range damage dealing. Like we talked about earlier, the combat in this game, the combat mechanics in this game really complement long ranged damage dealers. So the ranger is going to be super effective at doing that. And all around, I personally also think that the ranger is the most powerful class in the game. It's sad to say it, but not all classes are created equal, especially in Portal Knights, and the ranger is going to be the #1 class in my opinion. Now, I don't main a ranger, but like I said, it is probably going to be the most powerful class. For those of you who want to have an easier time going through the game, I would definitely recommend a ranger because of the fact that your playstyle matches what works best for the combat mechanics in this game. Long-ranged, high amounts of damage with fast attack speeds. Alright, so the strengths we want to talk about when it comes to the ranger are going to be the fact that, like we talked about earlier, you have a lot of access to different kinds of long-range damage. That's going to complement the game mechanics very well. It's going to be really easy for you to take out enemies. The longbow, especially on the ranger, does insane amounts of damage. Like, I think my level 1 ranger was doing about 12 to 17 damage per hit, which is about the same amount of damage my level 4 mage does with one hit from his wand. So the ranger is going to be super high amounts of damage from longer distances. Weaknesses for the ranger, the only weakness I can really think of is the fact that you don't have a lot of access to higher armor counts, but like I said, the game is completely customizable. Your armor is completely customizable, so you can totally be wearing warrior armor as a ranger and get away with it. Alright, on to the armor for the pure ranger playstyle. It's going to be the medium weight armor, the leather armor, and that armor is going to be giving you different passives that complement the ranger playstyle, like attack speed, you can get a chance for multi-hit, you can get increased critical chance, everything that complements a rogue slash ranger type gameplay, you're going to be able to get the passives for that. Alright, now it's time to talk about the different weapons that the ranger class can wield. So first we have the bow, second the crossbow, and third the sling. Now these weapons are actually really well ordered in the fact that they all have very different attack speeds. The sling is going to be your fastest attack speed, lowest amounts of damage. The bow is going to be the perfect median point, and the crossbow is going to be the lowest attack speed with the highest amount of damage. I personally would recommend using the bow because it's really well balanced. You're still going to be getting a good attack speed as well as good amounts of damage per shot. When we're talking about the ranger's attributes, we want to be focusing on agility and dexterity. So what do these two attributes actually boost? Well, with the ranger, your agility is going to be boosting your attack speed as well as your movement speed, which is really nice because the default movement speed for a character in this game can be pretty slow sometimes. I love the game, I'm a huge fan, don't think I'm bagging on Portal Knights at all when I say this, but the default movement speed for your lower level characters is pretty slow and it can be kind of boring at times when you're running across different zones. Dexterity is going to be boosting your ranged damage, so dexterity is going to be the #1 attribute you want to be pushing your points into as a ranger, because it's going to be increasing the amount of damage you do per slingshot or arrow that you're putting into your enemy. My thoughts on the ranger, like I talked about, I personally think it's the most overpowered. It's the best class in Portal Knights just because the longbow, if you can get a good longbow, it's absolutely insane how easily you can just drop enemies. Complete access to any kind of ranged damage you want, as well as access to physical weapons if needs be, as well as the option and opportunity to really boost your movement speed. It wouldn't make much sense for a warrior or a mage to put a lot of points into agility, but for a ranger it does, and that's also going to be boosting your movement speed, which is really nice because you're going to be getting through the game faster. You're going to be more efficient when you're collecting materials or going through a dungeon. It just makes sense that the ranger is the go-to class for someone who wants to have an easier time going through this game. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more Portal Knights guides, walkthroughs, tutorials, and gameplays, make sure you're subscribing to my channel. I want to be doing a lot more Portal Knights content. I just found the game. I can't believe I just found it, honestly. It's been out for a while and I just barely stumbled upon it. I'm absolutely in love with the game. So make sure you guys are liking the video. It really helps me out as a creator, and subscribing to my channel for more. Thank you guys so much. This is Jordan, the Fit Geek, out. Peace out, you guys.